Hello.
So, you know me and my questions, I love to ask them.
Yes.
So, I'm going to start out by asking everybody to think about something. And this is a different line of thinking that we normally have. But what if the darkest moments of your life could become the very foundation of your strength? What if your pain wasn't the end, but the beginning of your purpose? So, hi, everybody. Welcome back to Find Your Whys. I'm Yvonne.
And I'm Indira. And today we're talking to someone who knows exactly what the journey looks like. This will be a two-part episode with Randy Quinonez, and also known as Randy Q, the author of Pain to Power, a raw, real, and deeply moving book that describes his transformation from addiction, trauma, brokenness, to a life rooted in faith, love, and purpose.
Right. And this isn't just a story of survival. It is a story of redemption, of rebuilding, of grace showing up in the messiest chapters of life. So we are honored to have Randy with us to talk about where he's been, what he's learned, and how his story can give the rest of us some hope. I'm gonna move to the middle, Randy. There you go.
Right in the middle.
Hi.
Welcome, Randy. It's so glad to have you here. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for having me on your podcast. It's an absolute honor anytime I could contribute in a positive way to a community that may be affected, infected, or still hurting behind addiction, trauma, or being in the darkness. I am actually doing very, very well today.
Oh, that's great to hear that. Let's take a step from the beginning. Can you walk us into your story? Who was Randy before healing? And what was your life look like before your breakthrough?
Yeah, I don't know. Here's why I answer like that. I was born into addiction, and meaning my mother was a heroin addict, my father was a heroin addict, my big brother was a heroin addict, and the family system that I grew up in was all about drugs, gangs, and prison, even from my grandmother. So I don't even know what normal, or that to me, that was normal. Growing up in that dysfunction, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of emptiness. I didn't really have any kind of identity to revert back to. Just say, remember that little boy that once was joyful with dreams? None of that stuff is in my recollection.
Wow.
That was rough.
Yeah.
So can you take us back then to the moment that you realized that something in your life had to change, since that is all that you knew? Like the moment when you realized that your pain did not have to define you anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a journey. You're talking about a young kid that got jumped into a Mexican gang. I'm Mexican, born and raised in East LA, and low-income Hispanic housing projects down there known as William Meade housing projects in Dogtown. So it wasn't just happening underneath the roof of where I was being raised. So these customs, ways, mannerisms, the culture was instilled in me, not just by the home I lived in, but the environment. The whole neighborhood was in trouble. The whole environment was in trouble. So by the time I was 10 years old, I was already gangbanging and getting high.
Wow.
So the addiction lasted until I was 28 years old. And the only thing that was removed was the physical substance. The heroin was out, but all of the beliefs, mindset, attitude, behaviors, that part was a journey to get better.
And how that went through? How was that process that you decided to make a change?
Yeah, I'm still in the oven today. It is a journey. I love the way you use the word journey, because it is a journey. It's not a destination. Our work is never finished, and the journey is never done.
True.
And I am still on the journey to healing, because healing is a process. It is not a one-time event. There's just layered of issues and traumas, and every time you hit a new stage in life, a certain pain gets revealed to you. But not only is it pain, it's also opportunity for growth and freedom and to benefit and profit other people. So it is still a journey that I'm in. Now there are things I did to get better and heal. I'm a pastor, and I just feel that sometimes when you get Christian counseling, that too many pastors try to spiritualize every single wound and say pray about it. There's some things that may be how God works, but it's not the norm with how I do my work with others and the process I've been through. There's some tangible physical things that need to get done in order to turn your pain to power and start getting better and then offering it to other people. So the healing process is not just God, take this away. It's one thing to get the heroin out and then get out of prison, but the stuff that is on the inside, now we got to deal with the emotional impact of all these hurts. You got to deal with the emotional devastation of betrayal and rape and molestation and 10 years in prison. There's some feelings that are associated with the traumatic event that never got released in a responsible way, and that creates a lot of symptoms that need to be worked on.
I like that you mentioned in your book about pain brings power. Was it hard to revisit your past while you were writing your book? Did it really help you to heal, or a little bit more, or cause more pain?
Yeah, that's a great question, Indira. I don't even know if I've been asked that one. I've been on many podcasts over my book or my life story, but I'm not sure if I ever had that question asked to me. So the idea, the inspiration, the concept of writing the book been in me 10 years before I first even started writing. So it took 10 years to get it going. And how I got it going was I said, I'm going to be systematic. Power is in systems. And my system was every morning for a minimum of 10 minutes to write. And some mornings, 10 minutes turned into 4 hours. My mind and my spirit was just cooking. Other mornings, I had absolutely nothing. I could not fish and draw anything, but at least I was willing to stay there a minimum of 10 minutes. The parts, the revisiting painful memories is one of the hardest things that I have ever done. And the reason why is because you have to revisit painful memories and relive some of the shame, the loss, the darkness. But every time I wrote the truth, it has lost a little bit more and more power over me. So writing the actual book didn't just allow me to tell my story. It helped heal the little boy inside of me that actually lived the story to the point where I could revisit without reliving the past. Now, there's a part of my book, I'm not sure if you remember this part, but there's a part of my book in chapter 1. It's titled The Beginning. This is my book right here, y'all. Let me show you.
Yeah, hold it up. There you go.
So this is my book right here, an Amazon #1 bestseller.
Fantastic.
Boop.
Yes.
And here's my name, Randy Quinonez, but there's the title. The title of my book is called Pain to Power. The subtitle is How I Went from Damage to Destiny. And then this is me, and then this is my friend Danny Trejo, the Mexican actor, comes out in over 200 movies.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And in chapter 1, there was a very vulnerable chapter where my little brother passed away, and he was a baby. He was only 8 months old, and it is still a mystery of what happens. And a lot of the adults in my family don't even want to talk about it. So it's a weird mystery that still lingers around in my soul about what happened to my brother Jeffrey and how he passed away, and the pain and the feelings that it created inside of me. And I have done some work before on that particular death. And when I was writing my book, I mean, there was about 4 different times in my book that I cried, but this particular story, I was crying violently. I could not stop crying and crying and crying and crying. And some deep emotional wounds need to be addressed more than once. That's why I said healing is a journey, not a one-time event.
Wow.
Some of our scars, some of our stuff, you don't just get a therapy or journal or pray one time and bang. No, it's a journey. And I did some work around this, but as I wrote about it, it was, I could not stop. The pipes busted, the water came out. I could not stop. Now, I know enough because I am a therapist, I'm a pastor, I am a counselor. I know enough that my brother earned every single one of my tears. And when I do somebody's funeral, I let the crowd know that it is okay to cry. I told my wife, you guys, that if at my funeral, if nobody cries, that's not a good thing. You mean to tell me I didn't get into anybody's heart? Nobody is gonna miss anything, so it's okay. So I cried again over my little brother's stuff, and I remember. Last thing I want to say about that is when about 15 years into counseling, about 10 years ago, I had a guy on my caseload that I was counseling. He was on my caseload, and he came from prison. And he was on my caseload, and one time he was allowing me to explore in the deep waters of his life, and he started to choke up. It had him right here. His issues had him right here, and his eyes got watery, and I almost had him, and he ran out of my office into the courtyard to go have a cigarette, and he was gone all day. And that was like my first session of the day, 9 a.m. He came back before I punched out at 5. He came back apologizing. Now, because this is what people do. He came back apologetically, and I said, "Why are you apologizing?" He meant because his eyes got watery. He says, "I just want to apologize." And I said, "Why are you apologizing?" And he said this, Yvonne. He said, "Because I almost lost it." And I looked at him and I said, "No, you almost found it."
Yeah, wow.
So when your tears come down, you're finding yourself. You're finding freedom. You're finding your power. So I just wanted to add that into the story.
I love it.
Yes, I love it too.
So you had mentioned that you're a pastor now also, amongst what other things that you do. What do you think kept you alive during those darkest moments before you found your faith?
That is one of the high dollar questions. Well, honestly, I think it was mercy that I did not understand, because I should have died many times, either behind drugs. I was a heroin addict, hardcore. I'm talking about shooting heroin in my body through a vein, through a hypodermic needle, a syringe, at least 4 to 12 times a day.
Wow.
And I should have died many times through drugs or gangs. And I belonged to a gang that just had a lot of enemies on every side. I actually remember the summer of 1986, where we were getting summertime. We were getting shot at almost daily in the summertime. So I should have died many times through drugs, gangs, or prison. And that's why I said what kept me alive before I could acknowledge faith. I say a mercy that I didn't understand because of prison, drugs, and gangs that I should have died many times. And then looking back, now I could see that it was God's hand over all that thing. And sometimes something was whispering inside of my ear that I was going to make it. I even had, you know, and I wrote this story in the book when I was 14 years old. And I was a Mexican gang member, and I used to wear I looked it just like the movies, the TV. You see those cholos and Hispanic gang. That's what I looked like. And at 14 years old, my family got kicked out of the projects. Okay. And I lived with my grandma, and there was a bus ride, public transportation. There was a bus ride for like 40 minutes away. And it was like, I was 14 years old, and it was 1 a.m, and I was at a bus stop, and I already knew the bus schedule because this was a regular pattern for me. The last bus was at 1:15, and I knew when I was doing my dirt in the hood that I had to be at that bus stop to get to grandma's by 1, because the bus was scheduled to come at 1:15, and it did not start again till 6 a.m.
Okay.
And I remember standing at this bus stop at 1 a.m, and I was a gang member, and I was hungry, and I was cold, and I was skinny, and I was empty, and I was filled up with self-hatred and shame and guilt, all that baggage that I carried. And there was a cat lady. And the reason why I say cat lady is she was a bag lady. She was a homeless lady, old. I was 14, so she must have been like 65 years old, filled with wrinkles, white hair, and she always had a bunch of cats around her. And that was her bus stop. She stayed at that bus stop all the time. We knew the cat lady. We didn't know her name. We called her cat lady. And what she used to do was she had a bag, like a Walmart bag, filled with cat food, frisky kitty. And she will with her can, she will open up these cans, and she would yell, "Here, kitty, kitty," and all these cats came out, and she would feed these cats. And one time, it was just spooky to us, like eerie. At 14, I'm standing next to I'm reliving it. I'm standing next to this cat lady, scared to death, right? And I'm waiting for this bus, hoping that this bus would just hurry up and come scoop me up, man. And this cat lady looked at me, and she made eye contact, and she said these words. She said, "Young man." I said, "Yes." She said, "God told me to tell you you're going to make it." Now, that was her at 14 years old. I did not get clean for 14 more years until I was 28. But that voice and memory always, for some strange reason, served as an anchor and a comfort. And plus, I would have a whisper that would tell me that I was made for more than what I was doing. And that whisper kept me breathing.
Wow. I get goosebumps. And in fact, you kind of answered the next question that I was going to ask you. Okay. What would you now say to the version of yourself that felt most hopeless? And I think I may assume that the voice of that cat lady resonates sometimes to you. What else do you think also could be?
Let me answer that. So if I could look back at the younger version of myself besides the cat lady.
Yeah.
And you know what? I wrote that story in detail inside of my book. And in the back of my book, and I left my email, I've actually received a couple of emails with that particular story nailed. Hey man, I had a similar experience. Your cat lady story was amazing. That was an angel and all kinds of stuff, right? But if it was me, if I could speak to a younger version of myself in his darkness, I would probably look him eyeball to eyeball. I will probably look into his eye. There's a lot of intimacy with eye contact.
Yes.
Eye contact says more than even words, man.
Agreed.
And I will probably look him in the eye and say, even though you're strung out and you're hurt and you're empty, you're not worthless, you're wounded. I would tell my younger self, you're not worthless, you're wounded. And this pain you're in right now is going to one day become your power. Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't quit. Because there's a version of you that you have not even met yet. And I would tell him, don't quit, to hang in there. It's going to get rough and a little tight, but you're going to make it. You're going to be a pastor. You're going to be an author. You're going to fall in love and get married. You're going to be a homeowner. You're going to have a business called Randy Q Life Solutions and help. Don't quit. Don't quit. I will probably repeat that mantra 50 times, eyeball to eyeball. Don't quit. Don't quit.
That's powerful.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, you said that, you didn't get sober for a while after the cat lady. And I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it still kind of cracks me up that you're a gangbanger and you're afraid of a cat lady, but So if that wasn't the moment, it may have been the catalyst, but what was the moment? How did faith enter your life? Like, was it something gradual that kept happening over years? Was it one big impact? What happened?
Yeah, that was so funny what you said about the gangbanger comment.
Yeah.
Now, you know what? Gang members are tough, but can't get a job. Gang members are tough, but can't look themselves in the mirror. Gang members are tough, but can't share about emotions and feelings responsibly. Gang members are tough, but can't. So
ultimately, you were still a child.
Yes.
So,
yeah. At that time, but I still had the same mindset and behavior even when I grew into adulthood.
Yep.
So, but I was still a child. Now, there was a lot of. There's probably one time behind my grandma's. So my grandmother lived, like when you go down the main boulevard, the main street where all the activity was, the barbershop, the restaurant, the stores. There was a little side street in El Sereno. That's the name of a community in East LA. East LA is a larger community, but a lot of little neighborhoods in it, and El Sereno is one of them. And my grandmother's house was the first one. She didn't live in the middle of the block or the end. It was the first one right off of the main boulevard, and there was an alley. So my grandmother's house had an alley that connected all the way to the bakery, and then a pharmacy parking lot. And people, other addicts, used to get high in this alley. They're attracted to alleys, addicts. And in this alley, I remember I had it out with God. I shook my fist at God. And this is before I realized that my arms are too short to box with God. I tried. And I was in this alley, ladies, and I was screaming out loud, and I was cussing at God over and over and over and over and over again. And I called him just a bag of bad words. And I think I didn't say this out loud, but I think I even said, why don't you just take me out? And that was one time that I had verbalized my pain. But there have been many times where I had silent cries of pain. And one of the silent cries was when I was sitting on the edge of a prison bed in the South. And I had a silent moment. And then in a detox, a silent moment. And then inside of a rehab, I had a silent moment. And those silent moments collectively must have been, or I could say, were defining moments of my life. And it didn't all change overnight, but something shifted in my soul. And I think that's something that shifted inside my soul when it came to changing my life or turning the pain. I think something that shifted was for the first time I actually felt hope or alive. So I would say that was a defining moment with faith and all that. Is I had many times where I released silently and out loud cries to God, and over time something shifted, but in my soul, not external environment, but in my soul, and that's when something believed that I or felt a little bit of hope. Then I entered a treatment. To be more practical, my mother dropped me off at a drug rehab in January of 2000. So that's 25 years ago. I have 25 years and 6 months clean and sober and going strong.
Fantastic.
And thank you. And my mother dropped me off at a rehab 25 years ago. And going in this rehab, I started getting a shift on the outside. And I want to make a quick comment. So I have a mentor, and in my book, you guys, in my book, chapter 12, it's titled Mentorship. And I had 11 mentors throughout my life, because no man is an island. And John Maxwell says that one is too small a number to achieve anything great. And as I look back on my life, every time I went to the next level, it was a result of somebody who opened a door, presented an opportunity, or taught me a skill. And out of the 11 mentors that I mentioned in chapter 12, there's one main mentor that has a star role in my life. His name is Marco Pardo. And this man poured into me for 1 hour a week, every week for 18 years. And some of the best conversations, some of the best content that came out of the conversations of 18 years, 1 hour a week, I put in the book. I didn't put all the conversations. There's not enough books. I just put the best content of our conversation. And here's one of them. So my mentor has 2 masters. He's highly educated. He has 2 master's degrees in theology. And he's also a drug counselor, a spirituality counselor, and he's a grief specialist. And he put his tools on the inside of me. And when it comes to spirituality, he said this, Yvonne and Dita. He said there was a time in his spiritual walk with God where he believed he was walking hand in hand with God. And he said that he thought he was on God's Secret Service team. And what he meant by that is that you are not going to say anything negative about God. I'll catch a bullet for God. You're not going to say anything bad. You're not going to cuss at God. You're not going to say, not on my watch, I'll catch a bullet for God. Then he said that he got a client, and this client's mother passed away of cancer, and he was mad at God. And he said the word, he said, God could go to HELL as far as I'm concerned. And he said right when he was about to attack him or get on the defense, he said divinely, he felt a tap. This is my mentor, Marco Pardo. Mm-hmm. He said that he felt a tap on his shoulder, and a voice, not audibly, and a voice told him, hey, Marco, does it look like I need defending? Or does it look like this brother needs somebody with your skill level to relieve him from the poison that's choking him from feeling free? When he said that, that's when his ideas about spirituality, faith in God started changing, that he was put here with the skill to help relieve the suffering of human beings so that they can finally make peace with God. Now, when I was in that alley at 14, 15, 16 years old, screaming at God, I didn't know that I had the purge and that God is a big boy and he's not intimidated by human anger or emotions, that I was relieving myself to leave room in me for the defining moment, the shift in my soul, that there is hope, that my soul was so cluttered with anger and hurt. So when I released it, it opened up a door for God to come into my soul, even though physically I was still using drugs. And that story I put in the book, but my mentor, Marco Pardo, told me, not to ever defend God when people are mad. So he worked with this client to the point where the client regained peace in his heart, and his feelings of rage and anger ran out of gas, and he finally said the words, God didn't take my mother, cancer did. Cancer did.
Wow. That's a beautiful story. And now that you mentioned those things, I just wanted to ask you, you know that there's a lot of shame wrapped up into addiction. How did you learn to forgive yourself, and how did your relationship to pain change as you start healing in that process?
Oh yeah, indeed. That the shame is addiction. Addiction is shame. It's a cycle.
Yeah.
People use drugs because of shame, but then the drugs add more shame.
Shame. Yes.
So you get stuck in this destructive cycle. And there's positive cycles too. Success breeds confidence, and you need confidence for success. Well, there's actually negative cycles as well. And forgiving myself did not come easy. That's so. Again, let me say something about this, ladies. So my book, Pain to Power, is not an autobiography. We all have a story. My book, Pain to Power, is 50% autobiography with 50% teachings, tools, and techniques on how to turn your pain into power. So I throw a story in there, and then I lead it to what I did. A story, and then I lead it to what I did. So this is called Pain to Power. Now, there's a chapter in my Pain to Power, and it's called Healing. And what I said is until you heal the wounds of your past, you will continue to bleed. And although other people may be responsible for your wounds, you are responsible for your healing.
Yes.
And one of the hardest things or hardest people for us to forgive is ourselves.
Yes.
And the reason why self-forgiveness is so hard is because we are trained to focus at the behavior. Now self-forgiveness is hard because most of us look at the wrong or what we did or our behavior, and self-forgiveness does not focus on what we did. Self-forgiveness focuses on our need to heal, our need to be restored, our need to get better or be made whole. So self-forgiveness focuses on our need to heal or get better, not what we did. Most people go over here and they get stuck on the behavior while the wound stays open. So forgiving myself did not come easy. I carried shame, and it wasn't just shame. It was shame, guilt, regret, hurt, pain, abandonment, loneliness, childhood wounds. I carried all that stuff like a second layer of pigment, another layer of skin. So doing layer work with God's grace, I stopped pushing myself around. I stopped bullying myself. I stopped punishing myself, and the pain started to change. It stopped being my prison and became my platform. The pain that I once was drowning in pain, drowning in shame. After doing a lot of work, the pain stopped being my prison and became my platform. I put it in a book.
Yeah.
So you literally are your test to testimony example.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Andrea, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was saying that it became his superpower. Yeah. All that he went through, it helps him help other people as well.
Oh my God, yeah.
So what would you say to somebody who feels that they are too far gone for redemption?
Now that's a common question that I get. What would you say to people that are where you once were, where you were? The first thing I would say is you are exactly who redemption is for.
Exactly.
Look at, I been through it all. Prison, streets, gangs, heroin, and God still came for me.
Yeah.
So I would tell somebody, you are exactly who redemption is for. And I would also say that no one is too far gone, you're not alone and there is help.
Yeah.
Yes, this, oh my gosh, everybody, I hope you're enjoying this episode.
Yes.
This is the main reason we wanted to do 2 parts episode, because really we know how impactful the conversation with Randy will be.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this first half of our conversation with Randy. And if you like what you're hearing, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.